Hello. I'm going to sit for my talk, so thank you for coming. So my name is Annie, and I'm glad to be here. For the past 10 years, I've been working on a project that looks at gender-based violence, and it aims to reduce the stigma around gender-based violence, critique representations of gender in American society, and address the complicated cycle of abuse. Right now, I'm just going to give you an overview of the project and then really hone in on one of the projects, which is about my best friend. So a lot of this work is combines portraiture. This is a woman who I met at the crisis shelter who had just gotten out of an abusive relationship and was about to board a bus back to her home. And so it exists in these transitional spaces, which are the crisis shelters, or when people live in their cars in this time of, leaving their home and trying to start anew, and also in domestic spaces. So this is a door at this woman, Shirley's house, who was severely strangled by her ex on multiple occasions. She has since passed, and the nature of her death is unknown. And this is Charlotte, who has also passed, and this is while she was living in her car after moving out of her trailer with her ex before moving into the crisis shelter. So a lot of this work, I aim to try and really personalize and visualize statistics. How do we talk about that on average it takes a woman 7 times to leave an abusive relationship before she permanently leaves? So what are the little subtle details and more striking images that we can really look at and examine and try and understand these numbers that are real people's experiences? So I'm just going to go through, click through. So a lot of this work takes place in the Great Plains and looks at Williston, North Dakota, and Sidney, Montana are 2 of the areas that I work with. So this is a crisis shelter in Sidney, Montana. And this is a sheet of paper that the shelter gives women when they arrive and just asks them to sit down with it and circle all of the instances that apply to them. Because I think a lot of times people try and, push aside how bad and how severe the situation is, but when you're forced to really go through and highlight or circle what's happening, that is made more apparent. Okay. So the project I'm going to go in is really hone in on is about my best friend, and a lot of this work is rooted in my trauma and the trauma of those I love. So this project, which is entitled We Grew Up With Gum in Our Hair, is about my friend Hannah, who I've been photographing with since we were 14. So these are images from high school right now. There's no real intention with this work. I just have been photographing since I was 14 and have always used it as a way to sort of understand the world and process things, even if there's I wasn't I'm gonna set out to photograph a thing on domestic violence. It really just happened as a result of life. Also just note, her shirt says jailbait. So it's the little things looking back that you're how are we conditioning our self-worth? So this is the last image I made of Hannah, because when we were 20, we didn't see or speak to each other for 2 years because she was in a violent domestic relationship, and I just was pissed that she was choosing him over us, and then she couldn't see me without there being violent repercussions. And during that 2 years, I was raped and assaulted while I was in college. And rape is the most violent crime that happens on college campuses in America. 1 in 4 women will be raped during their academic career. And I went to school. This is a picture of my first black guy. And I went into my classroom, and none of my professors asked me what was going on. No one gave a fuck. My classmates blamed me for drinking. The police blamed me for drinking. And I just really started to pull away from school, which I was studying photography, so at that point, it was like my career. And then this is a picture of Hannah's first black eye. And when and I'm just gonna play a letter, and then this is a letter she wrote me during that time. You can just, when we weren't apart.
Annie, I don't really know what to say besides I'm sorry. I don't know if you ever think about me, but you are always in my thoughts. I dream about you almost every night. Right now, I'm in Arizona doing a program to help me understand why I let Mike abuse me for so long. I've lost everything and everyone, and it kills me to think I've lost you. Do you remember how it used to be? I do. And I can't let go of that. I also want to wish you a happy belated birthday. I'm writing you because I'm too afraid to call.
So when we reconnected, it was instantly after she left her relationship, and she suffered from extreme complex post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, and pulled out all of the hair on her body. And this is a pros and cons list of the, pros of staying alive during recovery. And I'm going a little short on time, but we can talk after if you want, but I just want to sort of fast forward through her recovery was long and she's good now. But when she was in that relationship and when she had a black eye, my mom went up to her and said, because she worked at a Starbucks up the street from my house, and said, if you ever need a safe place to stay, you can absolutely come to my house and no one has to know. And I think it's really important that we just think about the little things we can do for the people in our lives that are in violent or threatening circumstances or addictions, and that we have these conversations. Me Too has been great, and a lot of conversations have happened because of it, but I think going up to the kids in your life, imagine there's a photograph up there, and saying things like, if you're ever raped, you can come to me, and using those words, saying the word raped, and then also saying, one of the most common things I hear is that women are afraid to go to their fathers because of the harm that they will do to their abuser. So eliminating that fear and letting them know that you will just listen and not act on their behalf is really important. So that's the end of my speech. Thank you.